You see, something's going to happen.
What? What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
What?
I understand how you feel. You see, it's all very clear to me now.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. Very exciting episode. Having a guest on that I was actually on another show with, and I had a great time, so I was really looking forward to getting him on the show today. The co-host that we got today, or the Occult Rejects on the show, we got Liza, the Occult Reject Mad Scientist. Lisa, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Hell yeah. Then we got Jin the Ninja. What is up, Jin? Thank you very much for coming on and joining us tonight.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Love being on.
Of course. And then we got the man himself, Stein Forks. What is up, the modern pagan hero?
Yes, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I guess, actually, you know what? I totally forgot. We'll start with Jin first. Jin, do you just want to plug your show real quick and let everybody know where they can find you?
Sure. So I'm on Spotify and Anchor, Threshold Saints, 2 words. I'm on Twitter, Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn. Daniel from End of Days Radio. We just did an episode on the Balg forum, Become a Living God and EA co-editing and his kind of material, and because Dan knows him. And so I think that'll be a really cool one for this audience if they want to check it out.
Awesome. Yes. Definitely go check his stuff out, and I'm pretty sure the links are already in the bottom. And Stein, let everybody know where they can find your amazing show as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the host of the Agrarian Pagans podcast. We do mostly Norse Germanic mythology and everything that we can relate to it. Best way to find us is through our websites, www.greyhornpagans.com. And it is Grey, Grey.
Awesome. And I might have your links down there. If I don't, I will definitely add them.
Awesome.
And then, actually, Lisa, if you like, you will let anybody know where they can maybe maybe on Twitter if you want to plug your Twitter. I do actually have a link tree. Your link tree in the bottom.
Not Twitter. It's X.
Yeah, X. I have finally included your link tree inside the show notes. So,
Thanks.
Yeah. But if you want to let people know where they can find you.
Sure. Yes. On Twitter, on X. Solis Lisa, and on Instagram, Lisa Solis. And then also, if you are the reading type, we also have a website called the Occult Research Institute, and the link should be also included as well. And there's a lot of great, interesting articles that people write, and it's all different types of topics. So give it a gander.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I always forget to mention it. Thank you very much. And then finally, the guest himself. We got Myke Hideous on with us tonight. I'm sure probably most people know who he is. I've mentioned him to a few people, and they're like, oh, my God, that's crazy having him on. So I would assume most of my listeners probably know who he is. But if they don't, he is the founder and frontman of the gothic rock band, The Empire Hideous, which was active throughout the 90s. He also performed with the Bronx Casket
As
Company.
well as the
early
millennium
2000s. Sorry, my bad.
It broke up in 2008.
Okay. And you also, do you have Spy Society still going on now?
No, I'm not doing any music.
Okay.
Spy Society is just available as a recording. No more shows. I don't do shows anymore.
Okay. All right. And then you were in the Misfits from May to July in 1998.
Little tiny bit of time.
But besides that, another interesting.
I was also in the Bronx Casket Company. I recorded 3 albums for the Bronx Casket Company, which is a metal band kind of in the veins of Typo Negative, which was a side project, by D.D. Verney of Overkill.
Overkill, wow. Okay, I don't think you even mentioned them last time on Dan's show. Oh, I used to listen to them too. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, the
That's
Bronx
cool.
Casket Company was a side project, as I said, and we put that together. They had asked me to sing for them in 98, like right before I joined the Misfits, and I got the Misfits gig. So then after I got out of the Misfits, him and Dee and I, we recorded the first album, which was self-titled. And then the second one was Sweet Home Transylvania. and the third one was called Electric. But I don't know if you can get the originals anymore. I think he re-recorded them and he sang over my vocal. So I don't know.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so no more music. I was actually going to ask you about that. I wasn't sure if you had anything still going on. From what I was reading, it didn't look like it, but I just wanted to ask too.
The only thing, I don't know where you're reading that from.
From Wikipedia, actually.
Yeah, what hasn't been added is the recent single that I released with a band called October Noir, which is from Florida. Great metal band from Florida. They are in the gothic metal sound, definitely in the veins of Typo Negative. So if you like Typo Negative, you will like October Noir.
I gotta check it out then.
So the bass player Tom and myself were in a side project years ago called Memento Morte. Remember you must die. Or remember you will die. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, Tom and I remained friends after we got out of that band, and there was a song that we had played in that band that we re-recorded, and I did the vocals for it. His band did the music. The CD just came out, I think in June. And there was only 100 copies printed. It came with the cover was a painting that I had done. It was very occult related painting on the cover of the CD. And they also released it with an 11x17 poster, color poster of the cover. Again, the artwork that I did. So that just came out. I think there's only like 3 copies left to buy. But if you're lucky enough, you could still maybe get 1 or 2 of those copies if somebody's interested at MykeHideous.com, MYKE Hideous.com. And that's it. And then after they're gone, and you can only get it as a download on I think the October Noir website, which would be octobernoir.com.
Nice.
So that's the only musical thing that I've done since the band Memento Morte back in 2020.
Okay. I'm assuming were you a Typo Negative fan?
Yeah, I used to know Peter.
How
Peter
was that?
Peter tried to get me a record deal on multiple occasions. I'll tell you, in a nutshell, how I met Peter. I was working for a music newspaper at the time, a weekly arts and entertainment newspaper. We mostly covered rock music, punk rock, underground, all that stuff. And they put me on a job to go to see Peter Steele doing a revival of his band Carnivore. He had just finished a tour with Typo Negative, I think for maybe Bloody Kisses or whatever. It was before October Rust came out. So I get assigned to do the review. The show was at the Limelight in New York City. So I go to the Limelight. Now, I used to go there all the time. I used to always barge into the dressing rooms and be like, hey, I'm here, So I happened to go into the green room. I saw Peter sitting down on the floor. His manager, Ken, was next to him because I had spoken to Ken to get a VIP to come interview him. I come in. I see Peter. I knelt down. I'm like, hey, I'm here to interview you. We start talking, blah, blah, blah. And being the good promoter that I was, I happened to have an Empire Hideous CD with me. And after the interview, I simply handed him a CD and said, yeah, hope you like it. I'll see you around. I went on my merry way. And a couple months later, my band, Empire Hideous, was playing a gig in New York at a place called The Bank. It was a sold-out show. There must have been 700 or 800 people at the gig.
I've heard of that place.
And I'm on stage. I even wrote about this in my book. I'm on stage and I'm playing. And all the way in the back of the club, I see this 6'6" guy standing there with a police hat on. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? After the show, go downstairs. I'm in the dressing room. I'm drenched in sweat and blood and God knows what. And Peter Steele comes down. Peter Steele comes down into the dressing room, and we begin talking. He goes, I remember you. I'm like, yeah, I remember you too. He said to me, would you like to go on tour with my band Typo Negative? I said, yeah. But unfortunately, a bunch of things happened, and I was not only losing a drummer, but I was moving out of the house I was living in. It was just such a mess, so I couldn't do it. In a nutshell, ultimately, he asked me a couple of times to go on tour, and I just couldn't do it because we had no management, no record label, no publicity, publicist. Thank you. So we just couldn't do it. And the last thing Peter Steele did for me, in fact, he died while he was working on it. He was going to produce my last studio recorded album called The Time Has Come from Empire Hideous. And how that happened was I was actually at his house in Scranton, Pennsylvania, doing an interview of him for a film that I was doing. And by the way, it was the last interview he ever did. So anyway, after we did the interview, he said to me, Myke, what are you doing in music now? I'm like, nothing. I'm done. I quit. I can't deal with it anymore. He's like, really? I said, yeah, I'm just putting out one album more. I got one album to do to fulfill the contract of the record label that I was on, little label. And I said, that's it, I'm done. He goes, would you like some help with it? I said, yeah, what would you like to do? He goes, how about I produce it? I'm like, yeah, that would be great. So I sent him all the stuff, the recordings that we had that were unfinished, lyrics, things of that nature. And he started doing post-production on it, and he's taking notes and this, that, and the other. And he called me. He called me, Myke, this is fucking great. He's like, I can't wait to do this, blah, blah, blah. The day he died, now I'm also still friends with his girlfriend at the time, Pamela. The day he died, he was working on my stuff. Like all my stuff was on his computer and like the paperwork and everything. He started having heart problems. Ambulance came, took him out. He actually died in the ambulance outside of his apartment. And I know all this stuff because Pamela told me the next day what happened. So ultimately, even though Peter never finished doing the production on my album, he was working on it, and we did dedicate one song to him, which was one of the favorite songs that he liked, which was a song called Moving in Stereo by the Cars from 1980. It was one of Peter's favorite songs and one of mine. So the guy I was working at the time, who was a guitar player and producing the album with me, he said, let's do Moving in Stereo, and we'll dedicate it to Peter. And that's the story of me knowing Peter Steele.
Wow.
He's a good guy. Crazy, but a good guy.
Yeah, I was a pretty big fan of that band, Typo Negative.
Who wasn't? I mean, they're a great band. October Rust is one of my
I think
favorites.
I think their best album, actually.
One of the best albums I ever heard.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
definitely
so
agree on that.
unfortunately, Peter died. I was fortunate enough to do his last interview and have him working on my record. Sadly, he died, but nonetheless, he did do post-production on it, which was exciting. It was weird, though, because it was almost like destiny who spoke and said, you're never going to work together. Every time he tried to help me, we could never get it together.
Did you, I don't know if you maybe would have known him when this happened. It's a weird question, but I just remember that. I'm positive that he did do this. Didn't he, like, at one point actually fake his death?
Twice.
Yeah, he did it twice.
So the day, excuse me, can you just over here, please? Thank you. So the day he really died, I got a call from the guy who I was working on the film with, and he's like, Myke, did you see what's going on? And I'm like, nah, come on. I was like, I know Peter. And I said, this has happened twice before. He's told me about it. It's nothing. 5 minutes later, I get another phone call from somebody else. It was my guitar player at the time, this guy, Jason. He's like, Myke, I think Peter Steele's dead. I'm like, no, it's not real. Can't be real. Can't be real.
Yeah, that was the thing when that first happened. A lot of people thought it was a joke.
10 minutes later, somebody else called me. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So sure enough, I can't remember if I called Pamela or if the guy I was working with, the director, called, or she called him. Somehow or another, we got a call from Pam to let us know that Peter died. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, my head exploded, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So yeah, that's what happened. He had faked his death twice before, but I think that had to do with the record label, that they were going from Roadrunner to somebody else, because Roadrunner was holding him back. He was caught in this. I mean, Typo Negative was blowing up all over the world, and he was caught in a shitty contract with Roadrunner Records. That's another reason he always tried to help me out, was the fact that he had a shitty deal with a record label, and he always told me, don't sign anything until I read it.
Oh, wow. You mentioned something before, even with yourself. I was just wondering, you mentioned, and I've seen this before, and I knew that they do this. Sometimes they give you like, oh, this contract's good for like 3 albums. How many albums were they expecting you to hand them when you signed?
For who are we talking about now?
You remember before you had mentioned that, I think you mentioned that you were just doing an album that you had to do kind of just to fulfill the contract. It was going to be your last album. Or you had one more album left. Like when you signed your contract, how many did they tell you had to make?
2.
Oh, okay. All right.
This was a small label. It was a 3-year contract, two albums. So the first album we put out was called Say Your Prayers from Empire Hideous. It's called Say Your Prayers. And I don't mean to boast, but that was one of our best-selling CDs ever. I think we sold out in a month or 2 of the CDs that we had. And on that CD, we had 2 very popular tracks. One was called, what the hell is it called? Heaven Raining Bullets, and, oh shit, I can't remember my own song. Can you believe it? 2 Minutes to Midnight. God damn it, I'm getting old. Starting to lose it, man. 2 Minutes to Midnight and Heaven Raining Bullets were the 2 songs that got the most airplay in clubs, on college radio stations, and etc. So that was really, really exciting for me. And then the next one that we were going to put out was going to be titled The Time Has Come. But instead, since we were having so many problems, I lost my band. I had no band left. Then I got sick. I had to deal with cancer, and so the record label, what they did is they took my first 3 releases that the band had ever put out, Empire Hideous, and they put this, I wouldn't call it a compilation, but I don't know, what would the term for it be? The first 3 albums, I don't know what that would be, but so they released that, and that fulfilled my contract.
Oh, okay.
Sadly, nobody wanted to buy it. That was a joke.
Okay. Let me see if I can make everybody uncomfortable for a second. Well, in this episode too, I did want to kind of mention it, but we kind of Myke just took over and went with the.
I do apologize.
No, it's all right.
Talk a lot. Just tell me to shut up.
It's okay, man. Yeah. So I mean, in this show, I do plan on also trying to get into some of I guess. Myke's personal beliefs and stuff. Not jumping into that now, but just people jumping on or listening. I did want to let them know that if you listen long enough, we'll also get into Satanism, stuff that he is into, maybe the differences between what he practices and other practices, etc. I don't really know much about it. I was never, when I was in the OTO, I may have met a few other people that consider themselves Satanists, but I was, never going to anything. So I can't speak for what Satanism is, really, so we'll have Myke here for that. So I'm very interested on that. Be a little bit educational for everybody as well, I think. Yeah. So I guess when it comes to music, what was some of the best parts about being with the Misfits, or maybe on tour? What was one of your best? Did you have a best memory from playing with them? Or was it all shit?
Okay. In all honesty, all right. So I wrote a book about my involvement, not only as a musician and a performer, but there's 2 solid chapters dedicated to my having toured with the Misfits as the lead singer. So when I first, when we first landed in England, we drove to Scotland and we did a show in Scotland. And from that point on, I mean, Jerry treated me with dignity and respect. And in a way, he kind of referred to me as his little brother, so to speak. Now, I knew Jerry and Doyle for 11 years prior to my getting that gig in 1998. And it only lasted, that buddy thing only lasted about maybe 3 weeks. And then little by little, like, I started getting disrespected, and then I noticed they were having band meetings without me. Mind you, before I even got on that plane and flew across the Atlantic Ocean, Jerry told me specifically, "You are the new singer for the Misfits. I'm not looking for anybody else. You are it." Because I asked him a number of times, and he said, "You're the man." I'm like, okay. So somewhere down the line, I remember we played a gig in Germany, and while we had some time, I called home to speak to my girlfriend at the time. And she tells me, she's like, "Myke, I was watching MTV, and they mentioned that the Misfits got a new singer, you, and that they are auditioning you, or how did they say it? A long audition throughout the European tour." Now, mind you, that was like 45, 48 days. I can't remember. It was a long tour, a lot of gigs. I played like 38 gigs in 48 days or 45 days, whatever it was. But I kept asking him, "Are you sure I'm the singer for, and you're not looking?" "Yep, it's all good." Now, mind you, I also didn't sign a contract with them, which they insisted I had signed, but they never got to it, never got around to it. So there were times where I began questioning what was going on. So I would have to say, in answer to your question, maybe the first 3 weeks were probably the best, because I was being treated with dignity and respect. And then after that, little by little, it just went down, 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 and down. And before I knew it, like, people in the band, like, certain people weren't talking to me. Certain people, they weren't including me in anything. As I said, they never had me involved in any of the band meetings. I know I wasn't getting paid what I should have been getting paid, and I found that out later. So yeah, there was like, if you ask Jerry today, "What do you have to say about Myke Hideous?" he'll tell you that was a dark cloud in my life. He was a pain in my ass. Mind you, I saved 2 international tours, one in Europe and one in South America. I helped them save those shows, which at the time in 1998 were the biggest shows the Misfits had ever played in their entire career as a band.
Wow.
Okay, excuse me, my cat just laid on the computer. You gotta pick a place, dude. Can you move? Like, listen, like, she just wants to get this in front of me. Lay down. All right, sorry guys.
It's all right.
Sorry.
It's all right.
But anyway, yeah, that was it was sad, because I really wanted to make the best of that, but they made it so difficult for me, and I began to feel like I was being used, and that's exactly what they did. They didn't tell me that I was done with everything until after the second tour, after their asses were covered, so that they didn't have to cancel the tour. And that's pretty much it.
Well, maybe not counting the Misfits.
What do you mean?
In your musical career, or throughout your time playing music, what was probably your most memorable and enjoyable night? Was there one that you can think of?
No, I had a lot of them with my
Oh, you
own
could
band.
just. All right. Well, then just if maybe give us
Yeah.
one of those.
With my own band, I had a lot of good times.
That's good.
For those of you who don't know, I wrote a book called King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit, which is about my career as a performer starting out in 1988. And it leads you all the way up to where I get into the Misfits, go through the tours, and then out of that, I kind of finish up. I re-released it in 2022 or 3, I can't remember. But I re-released it, and basically what it is it talks about all my notable times as a performer in all the bands that I sang for and performed in. If I had to pick one, I mean, every gig we played at the Limelight was always amazing. The first night we ever played at the Limelight, we opened up for a band called The Wake. There was about 700 or 800 people in the Limelight. It was just absolutely stunning. And mind you, at that time, my band wasn't even that good. But we were lucky enough to get our foot in the door. But most of the big shows that we got were at a club called The Bank. And we did a lot of these gigs at the Bank. And all I can say is that they treated me like royalty at that club. I always, I could walk through that door anytime, and they would just take care of me. I think in a whole, being the person that I was, Myke Hideous, and getting the treatment that I did, like I was treated, like a rock star. I'm not gonna lie. They really treated me good. Those who know me or knew me. So every time I went out, there was always something interesting happening, whether we were playing or I was just going out to hang out. There was always some crazy, I mean, I can go on and on for hours, but that's why I wrote the book. I put all the fun stories about the band in the book, and there's too much. I have to write another book.
Good. What about something I think I had asked somebody else I recently had on that was a performer? I'm sure probably for you, because you've been doing it longer just by odds. Was ever a time you fucked up live?
Oh, all the time.
All right.
Yeah, I'm terrible at remembering lyrics. And I'll prove that to you. So whenever Empire Hideous played, we played electronically. In other words, we plugged in our amps and turned on the mics and the effects and the floor pedals and all this, that, and the other. There were a couple times, starting back in the 90s, 94, when we started playing acoustic gigs. That was all the rage back then, because you had MTV Unplugged. So we started doing a few unplugged gigs. And the funny thing is, like, I could never remember the lyrics when we were doing them acoustically, because it was just a whole different dynamic. So I'd always have to have the lyrics in front of me whenever I did a gig that was acoustic. But yet, if I got on stage and was doing something that I knew and would rehearse constantly, it was always in my head. So I had no problem remembering. But I say that, but actually I did. I'm just forgetful. But then again, I was at the time I was rehearsing 3 nights a week. So the band was tight. We were tight from 94 to 98, the end of 98. Actually, the beginning of 98. The band was so tight because, as I said, we rehearsed 3 nights a week, 3 hours a night. And it's so important. Like, a lot of bands don't understand it. You have to rehearse more than once a week. In order, like, I know professional musicians, violinists, pianists, guitarists, bassists, drummers, etc., etc., etc. And I don't think there's one of them that I know that doesn't rehearse every single day. So if you're out there and you are listening to this and you want to be a musician, a performer, a guitar player, whatever, in a band, I sincerely suggest that you rehearse every single day. no less than 3 hours a day. That's how you become amazing at your instrument. And that's why we became such a tight band from 94 to 98.
I heard a while back that when singers forget the lyrics, like that's when they will like point the microphone to the crowd, like, no, you guys. Like, is that true at all? Or like is that just, you know, cheap, like, oh shit, I forgot the lyrics. You guys know them.
I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that have done it. I never did. I mean, I did it just to interact with the audience. But I'm sure there's people out there that have been in a spot where they forget, and so they point the microphone out. But I mean, I always did it just to interact with the band, with the audience. And mind you, I only did it when I was in the Misfits. I didn't do it with Empire Hideous.
Okay. I thought that would like just make it for a great excuse also to like interact with the crowd and like when you like blank out for a moment. It's just
I could tell you personally, a lot of times the reason I've blanked out and forgotten things is and I'm not kidding when I say this, is because I was always focused on everybody else. I was always worried that my musicians weren't rehearsed enough, weren't practiced enough, weren't focusing on what they were supposed to be doing enough. And so in addition to, you know, mind you, we didn't have a road crew. I mean, we did, but not a real road crew. I still set up my own stuff. I had to set up the stage, and we had this whole elaborate stage set up with curtains hanging from the ceilings and lights and you know, I'm talking big lights, like can lights and sparklers and what else? Even Christmas lights wrapped around the drum sets and skulls and all kind. I mean, we had TVs and sometimes pumpkins. So there's this whole thing that I was involved with, that I had to set up the stage, drive the van to the location, set up the merchandise booth so that the girl that we had, now mind you, this was only locally, set it up so that she could sell the merchandise. If we were away, I had nobody to man the merchandise booth. I had to do it all. So my mind was always like 100 different places. Hold on. Excuse me. You're going to fall and die. Oh, God, you are really out of control today. Sorry. I'm in a loft and she's like hanging off the end. Anyway. So my mind was always wandering because I was so worried about everybody else and what they were supposed to do. So when you don't have full focus on what you're doing, you forget. And I'll be the first to admit I made a lot of mistakes because I wasn't always focused. I tried to be, and there were times that I knew when like you can tell when you can feel it in your blood, in your mind, when a show's going just perfect. And we had a couple of those shows where everything was just perfect. Nobody made any mistakes. No guitar strings broke. No drum heads broke. No microphone problems. Everything went smooth. And then those nights, I was in the zone. I was always in the zone. I always kind of like went into this, how would I say, another state of mind when I was on stage. Like I became a whole different person. But that was me performing. That's what it took. But then there's nights when, you know, if you hear somebody make a bad note or they're out of tune, or the drummer stops when he's not supposed to stop, and then I start to worry. That's when I would get unfocused.
You know, oh, go ahead, Stan. Sorry.
Sorry, no, I've had that. You know, being at concerts when, especially I remember one where the drummer like messed up big time. Like, in 2 songs he was like out of beat. I believe the first one he was a full second early, and the next song he was a half second off. Like it ruined the mood for me, and I was like standing in the crowd. I can't imagine what it's like on stage, like hearing that your drummer behind you is just way off.
It's terrible when you're on stage because you feel like you've embarrassed yourself. At least I did. If anybody made a mistake on stage, I felt embarrassed because I wasn't giving them, the audience, what I felt what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and
Did I say that right?
remember the worst part
What
is that
I'm sorry, what we were supposed to be doing. That's what I meant to say. Sorry.
no, I remember the worst part is that the song started with double bass drum, and he was early on the double bass drum. So that threw me off. I just I had to get a beer, had to go outside. Nah.
Yo, did you because somebody's mentioning it in the chat now, did you know King Diamond?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I was
Oh,
never
no,
into
why?
black metal.
Okay, no, for some reason somebody
Yeah.
mentioned in the chat.
No.
I thought maybe I don't know, maybe you knew King Diamond.
No.
That would have been a pretty interesting character, I'm sure. I would have liked to
You're the
ask you that.
second person that asked me that in like
Really?
a month. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I never got into King Diamond or his music. Nothing against the guy.
Yeah.
I never got into black metal.
I got you. Oh, one question I did want to ask about another band. Yes or no? Should Motley Crue hang it up already or not?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, because he was talking about like people like being off on timing. I saw them, and it was just like, damn, like I think it's time to wrap it up, guys. It's
I'll put it to you this way. All right, I was a big Kiss fan. Okay, I used to love Kiss.
that's right. I remember you saying that.
A very early age. I had every record and then some. When I finally sold my collection, I got like $3,000, if not $3,500 for the entire collection. Fan I was. So when they were still going and still like they just did their final show in January or December, I can't remember, but I had been saying they should have hung it up 20 years ago when they did their last concert, but they just kept going and just kept going, and I was really like bored of them at the time. So when I was never a Motley Crue fan either.
Oh, okay.
I like one song by them, Looks to Kill. And I know I saw the movie about their career. I think they were amazing in what they did. I mean, Motley Crue gave Typo Negative their opportunity. That's how Typo Negative got famous, from Motley Crue.
Oh, wow.
But I was never a fan. So I can't honestly tell you what's going on with the band, but I do know that, what's the lead singer's name? Vince Neil?
Yes.
He looks terrible. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've gained some weight myself. But if you're going to have a beer gut and go on stage, even like Axl couldn't have, if Axl had, they could have done a Guns N' Roses reunion, and it would have been phenomenal. But he's out of control. Vince Neil's out of control. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, it's I think Stein had asked earlier too. They're talking about putting out the mic and stuff when because they're like screwing up. I swear to God, I had seen. I went to go and see Wu-Tang. They played in MSG. I forgot how long ago. And Mary J. Blige came out at the end, like fucking an hour late. Like literally, like people were waiting, or they had other people come out that were supposed to come on afterwards because she was taking so long. Then she comes out and like takes forever to get down the stage. I mean, she looks ripped, and like half the show is her holding the mic out. And I was like, yo, this lady's so trash. She can't even. She's got the people singing for her.
These are bands. I don't even know who.
Mary J. Blige.
Never heard of her.
You know who Wu-Tang is, right?
They're
Wu-Tang?
pop artists. Pop, hip hop, not your scene.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah,
I
but
don't,
still, I mean, I'm sure they probably know who the Misfits are. Wu-Tang probably knows who they are.
They're a rap thing. Yeah, I don't listen to any of that shit.
I actually have a
should've-
question for you, Mike.
should've assumed.
It's
Yes.
also funny, Nick. I've seen Mary J. Blige in concert as well. But sorry, Nick. Sorry, Mike. So I have a mutual who has his own podcast. It's called Nice Podcast. Shout out Big Mac McCarthy. He wanted to know what you think of My Chemical Romance, because that is the band that got him into the Misfits.
They used to rehearse in a room right down the hallway when I used to rehearse in this studio in Clifton, New Jersey. Never met them, and they were only like 3 doors away. I never met them, but I know they used to rehearse there. And that's all I could tell you. No, I don't know them personally, but that's the closest connection I have to My Chemical Romance.
What do you think of their music?
It's all right. You know, with respect to them, they're great musicians. They did well for themselves, and I'm very happy for them. But if I may be critical, and this is not a bash against them, I found it to be a little bit kind of like in the same veins of like a Marilyn Manson type crossover with maybe, I don't know, like a Slipknot or that's probably a bad example.
I think you're on the right track. Like my wife and I, like, we're elder emos. So, and like My Chemical Romance is just huge in that scene and still is. Like,
yeah, they're great.
16-year-old like emo kids now who still listen to My Chemical Romance and Slipknot.
You consider them emo?
Well,
so they're pushing it.
Emo adjacent, I would say. Like, they're not like really. I don't know. Like, emo it's such a broad thing. It you know, of course, came from like hardcore, post-hardcore.
You think so?
They're very big and very popular in the emo scene.
That's weird because I never ever saw them as an emo band. I mean, I saw them earlier on when they had, you know, just gotten big, and they were playing hard industrial metal type stuff, you know. But I always found emo to be, I mean, a bunch of guys wearing, like, you know, jeans and sneakers and tight shirts with, you know, just t-shirts, like no specific character or fashion to them. But when My Chemical Romance came out, they looked like, I mean, they were all dressed up fancy in the gothic clothing and everything. But the music was undoubtedly in the veins of like metal meets gothic meets industrial. Anywho, again, no disrespect to them. I think they're a great band, and I'm happy that they got where they are. I just really never found their music to be unique, and I hope that's not a bad criticism to them. Again, I think they're great. I just never really got into. I should probably shut up. You know, they're good. They're good. I'm going to say that they're good. They're good.
They're great. They're great.
They're great.
That's funny. You know, I guess before we get into it, I mean, there's so many other questions I'd like to ask, but like, I don't know how long this other stuff will take. I would like to maybe ask, like, what's your experience? Because I'm sure people know, with Glenn Danzig, you know?
Glenn, you want to say hi?
Yeah,
No,
I wish. Because I know you guys are actually pretty tight, right?
No.
Oh, I thought you were at one point.
No. I when I got first, before I even got in the Misfits, you know, I've been doing interviews of him when I worked at the Arts and Entertainment newspaper. And then after I got out of the Misfits in I believe it was 99. I think it was the winter of 99. I was put on assignment to interview Glenn Danzig in person. So my editor says to me, "Hey, Mike, you want to interview Glenn Danzig?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you might want to let the publicist know that it's Myke Hideous, the guy who sang in the Misfits," because at the time they did not like each other. Glenn hated Jerry and Doyle, wanted nothing to do with them. And I know this for a fact because of the multiple times I interviewed him prior to getting into the band. So the editor calls back the publicist for Glenn and says, "Hey, does Glenn have a problem with Myke Hideous interviewing him?" "No, everything's fine." So one day, I don't know when it was. I think it was in February. So I take the train into New York City and I walk all the way to his hotel room. I can't remember where he was staying, but he was staying at this hotel room in New York City. I get to the hotel room. I'm waiting for him. He comes in. Glenn, how you doing? We shake hands, blah, blah, blah. We go into the elevator, and I said to him, so I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm like, what did you think when you found out that I was going to do the interview? I mean, knowing I had sang for the Misfits. He's like, Myke, you dug your own grave when you sang for them. And he was right. He said, yeah, you dug your own grave when you sang for them. I mean, you know how they are, he said to me. And he was right, 100%. Anyway, the interview went great. After that, we sat down, we talked. And here's the funny part. That same day, he had an interview at MTV Studios in New York. This was so funny to me. So he goes, you want to ride? He goes, because I had to go to the train station. He goes, come on. He goes, we get in his limo. And we drive to MTV Studios. And now there's this crowd of kids waiting to see Glenn Danzig. And the door opens up, and here I come. I come out of the car, and Glenn follows, and I can hear him be, oh my God, Myke Hideous. Oh my, Myke Hideous. And I hear somebody, they should do a song together. I just thought it was the funniest thing. But anyway, yeah, from that point on, I kept in contact with him because I was actually going to try to get to see if he would be interested in publishing my book. But that he ended up guiding me in the right direction on where to go to get it published. And the other things were when I was doing Spy Society 99, which was the band I started after the Misfits and before I redid Empire Hideous. So between 1998 and 2001. So Spy Society was happening, and we recorded a song, which was a Misfits cover called Horror Business. And I sent Glenn a copy of it after I spoke to him. I said, listen, I want to send you something. Tell me what you think. I sent him the CD, and he said, and I quote, Myke, that was the best Misfits cover I ever heard, unquote. So he also gave me very high kudos, if you will, when he said to Steve Zing, his bass player currently, he said to Steve Zing, in fact, Steve Zing told me this. He was like, we were watching your videos when you did the Misfits. We were watching them on YouTube or whatever it was at the time. I don't know. And he said, Glenn said to me, he's like, if the Misfits had to have a replacement singer, you were the one that it should have been. And that was to me, that was such a great honor to receive, a claim like that, a statement like that from Glenn Danzig, because Glenn was an influence of mine growing up as a young punk rocker.
I mean, he's even saying if I was to be replaced, I mean, that's pretty big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
And he said it because he knew he could tell that I had that, I'm not going to say just the look, but the character to be a part of that band, and what that band, the Misfits I'm talking about, what that band should have done instead of going down the bubblegum rock, punk rock and roll that it does now. It's like kiddie stuff, But a lot of people that I know, and again, I don't mean to boast, but a lot of people that I know told me that I was giving the Misfits street cred. That's what they said. And it was because I was the guy coming in. I had, I had the outfit that I would wear every day, not just on stage, but off stage as well. I was the one who had all the Misfit records. I knew that band inside and out musically. But Jerry didn't want that. Jerry wanted somebody he could mold like he did with Michael Graves. And I just wasn't that person.
Okay. Well, that was a nice compliment from Danzig.
Without a doubt, one of the I'll always remember that. It was a huge boost to my ego, I'll tell you that.
Something I think I don't think we got into on Dan's show. This may be maybe kind of like an iffy question for you, but I guess if you don't want to get specific, but in your opinion, when it comes to like music or maybe even like the heavy metal scene, it is just something I'm interested in asking. Do you think there is like an actual lot of beliefs in the images that these bands give off?
Can you be more specific?
I guess, like, you know, like I'm not going to ask for, like, you know, do you think Slayer's like really, you know, the people that they act, you know, and stuff like that? Like, are a lot of bands like actually, you know, if they say they're a Satanist, are they really Satanists, or, you know, or
Well, some are. I know, from what I understand, the lead singer of Slayer, whose father was a minister, and I believe now he's become a Christian.
Wow, look at that.
But other bands like King Diamond, I'm pretty sure they're all in for Satanism. Bands like, there's a lot of metal bands, but I don't know them. I never really got into metal that much. But there are some like Exodus and, oh geez, I don't even know.
Morbid Angel.
Probably, yeah, Morbid Angel, right?
Deicide.
Isn't that the one where they burned down churches and they killed their singer or something? They murdered their singer.
No, that was a different one. That was a
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I have heard of that.
Norwegian black metal band. I don't know the band's name, but Vard Vikernes and Euronymous, and Vard Vikernes is now.
Stein would know because he's Norwegian, right? You're Norwegian, right?
I'm Dutch, but
Dutch. So you know those
Vard
Norwegian
Vikernes
metal bands they're like all in, man, 100% Satanist.
Oh yeah, like the Scandinavian black metal bands, like they're crazy as crazy gets.
Yeah.
Vard Vikernes has really gone off the deep end and is now considered the crazy uncle of paganism.
I gotta
like,
say, though, I
Uncle
don't.
Mark at it again. Like,
I don't agree with burning down churches. I'm not a Christian anymore. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, but I'm not that. I still think that burning down a historic building that, you know, is architecturally genius, I think that's wrong. Burning them down, I think that's
architectural
just bad.
genius. That's I see
and
that.
like that's the least worst thing that.
Yeah.
Because
You're
when
right.
their singer, I believe it was that he committed suicide, I believe.
Maybe.
And like, I don't know who found him. It may have been Varg who found him. Wouldn't surprise me. It was Euronymous who perished. But like the first instinct was, let's get a picture of this
I read
and
about
make
that.
that our next album cover.
Yes, I read about that in a book called a book that covered all kinds of Satanism within the culture and rock and roll and movies and so forth. And they talk about that very incident that you just mentioned, how they wanted to use it on the album cover. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, like how is that your first fucking thought?
I know, right? It's crazy.
You know what? I think I kind of want to ask that question just in a different way now, because one thing, even too, I really feel like a lot of things get thrown underneath the word satanic or Satanism, where they're not even the same thing. But would you say, is there an actual real interest in the occult within like the music community from your experience, or is that a lot of just an image to maybe catch attention? You know how I'm saying, like marketing almost.
Oh,
Like
sure.
how much of it is theatrical?
Sure. If I could remember the name of the book I was just talking about, there are plenty of bands out there who both use it for marketing, and there are those who use it as a
Like even just their own lifestyle,
like
practice.
a religion, if
Okay.
you will. You
All
know. I don't know I don't know the answer to all, like who would be the ones that are completely in it and those who use it for marketing. But let's face it, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, AC/DC, and the list goes on.
Oh yeah.
They used from as far back as the 60s.
Iron Maiden.
They used that satanic connection to sell records. But I never did that. As a matter of fact, I didn't even become a Satanist until about 2010.
Okay.
But prior to that, I read about the occult and witchcraft and so forth. But then I read more about it and I began to study it. Now, mind you, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a priest. When I was a young boy, I wanted to be a priest, growing up in a Roman Catholic family. I went to church on Sundays when I was a kid. I stopped going. I went to Sunday school as well, confirmation, what's the other, penance, and something else. Communion, thank you. So I went through all that throughout my grammar school days. And then at 13, once I got my confirmation, I never went to church again. However, my parents then sent me from grammar school to high school to a Roman Catholic high school. I went to Patterson Catholic in Patterson, New Jersey. Now, having gone from all throughout grammar school and not having any, have to wear a uniform and all that, I went to Patterson Catholic and I was just out of my element. And that's when you have to take a religion class when you go to a Catholic school. And I was a guy who was always saying, well, can we talk about Lucifer? Put your hand down, Myke. What did Satan do? Put your hand down, Myke. And so every time I was always asking these questions about Lucifer and Satan and demons and hell. So what did they tell my parents? They told my parents that I was worshiping the devil at age 13.
Well, you know what the thing is, too, is like if you really think about it a lot, even in my opinion, you'll get a whole lot of information about everything else except for those topics. So, like, when you even, like, I want to know more because you're not telling me jack shit, but everything else, you know?
So, like I said, I wanted to be a priest when I was young. But by the time I reached 13, and every time I tried to speak about or have conversations about the devil and Lucifer and hell, I was always told to shut up. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then little by little, I started reading more. And then I read more about the controversies of religion, particularly in Catholicism, as well as Christianity. And I read more and more and more about it. And I was like, wow, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I don't want to become a priest. And so I started getting into music. And little by little, things went their own path. But anyway, if I may backtrack a moment, the whole thing with bands and their association with Satanism, that's a tough question. There are, again, as I said, there's a lot of bands that use it for marketing, and there are some of them who really, it's part of their life.
No, it's an honest answer. I mean, I assumed it was going to be kind of like that anyway. I just wanted to hear somebody who's been around it, or maybe, you know, whatever, can actually say.
Well, mind you, I've only been around it, so to speak, or understood it, since 2010. I had, at that moment in time, between 2010 until about 2012, I was studying everything on the occult, witchcraft pre-1960s, before Wicca came out. Because Wicca is not something I'm into. That's like hippie shit, and I'm not hippie shit. So
just throw some lavender over your shoulder, and you're okay, man. You know, just spin around with a crystal in your hand.
Wicca came out. I think a guy named Gardner.
Yeah.
So he did that in the 60s, and that was completely out of my element. That was too hippie for me. So I was more interested in like the ancient grimoires, you know, the 1,000-year-old grimoires, things of that nature. So I started reading on that because I was very interested about it. Also, I did try just reading about runes and the Nordic pagans. That was very complicated. So was the Kabbalah from the Jewish religion, which again was very interesting but very complicated. And I was just trying to get a broad view or a broad knowledge of all different types of occult stuff. And I just started buying books and books and books and books. And I was reading like a madman. There were points where I would read up to 3 or 4 books at a time. When I say at a time, I'd read one, put it down, and read another. Like, I was just crazy for the information. So crazy that I even wrote my own personal grimoire.
Remember you said that.
Yeah, I took the best of what I thought was the best in all these books, and I had I was given a present by a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, who went to Turkey. So he brought me back this book about 8.5 by 11, give or take. It was blank pages, 450 pages blank, with a leather bound cover, hardcover, stitched together with a half moon embossed on the cover. And it's from Turkey. So, and it was handmade. So he originally got me that book because he knows I'm an artist, and he said, "Hey, you could use it to draw." And I'm like, I looked at it, and I noticed that the paper wasn't exactly the kind of paper that you would use for drawing. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write in this book instead. And I got this brilliant idea. I was like, you know what? I'm going to write my own grimoire. So I wrote about, I have chapters in there. I write about spells and rituals and conjuring and voodoo dolls and all kinds of curses and hexes, everything you could possibly imagine, at least whatever I could find in the books that I had. And I started writing and writing and writing. And then as I began to read more into the Satanic Bible, I had an epiphany. And that epiphany was that I am a Satanist, not like I chose to be, but because the way I thought automatically related to what was written in Dr. Anton LaVey's book, the Satanic Bible. And I read it, and I'm like, wow, this is like what I believe in. So it's not like, just for anybody out there who thinks I'm a wacko, as a Satanist, I would never sacrifice any kind of animal or humans for that matter. In fact, one of the first few things it tells you in the Satanic Bible is never harm an animal, never harm a child. And I say child because that harming a human can be possible if you're being attacked. It tells you to stand up for yourself and not turn the other cheek, which it tells you in the Bible, in the New Testament. So, all right, so without getting off track, as I continued to read, I discovered that I was more of a Satanist than anything. And suddenly all the old grimoires and all the old texts from the first millennium, like 1000 AD, all that stuff became meaningless to me. Because now I began to understand, in the modern ages that we live in, modern Satanism relates to me more than anything else. I've tried I've read about witchcraft. I've read about Luciferianism. I've read about what's that guy? Agrippa. Agrippa. Him. I've read his. I mean, that's another complicated book.
Yo, that thing is huge.
3 books of the occult, right?
Yeah.
I got both of them. There's allegedly there were other.
Yeah, there was also like a 4th made. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I have that one too, but
nice.
Very complicated read. Again, I read about.
I think that's stuff that we'll probably never fully understand. We'll have ideas.
Who's the guy who drew Baphomet?
Oh, Eliphas Levi.
Eliphas Levi.
Yes, yeah, I read his book, or 2 books, right? Two. Anyway,
I think there was 2 parts to it.
All that stuff that I read became meaningless at that point. You want to know why? Because all the old grimoires and all the old anything that didn't have to do with the devil, if you were conjuring a demon, you were still doing it through God. You were still you're conjuring this demon out of hell, allegedly, and you're binding it, and you're telling it, if you fuck with me, I will send you to heaven or back to the bowels of hell. Whatever. You're using religion, Christianity, or Islam or Judaism to conjure these demons, and you're right off the bat, you're telling them, we're not friends, I believe in God and I want you to do this for me. How could you get, if it truly exists that there's heaven and hell, God and Lucifer, as I like to refer to him as, demons and angels, why would you try to conjure demons and still do it through Christianity or whatever religion you're trying to do it through? I just found that to be ridiculous. And ultimately, I just went full-blown Satanist.
Gotcha. Yeah, that is an interesting thing you're talking about with these demons. I don't think most people actually really understand that. They're like, for most of the rituals that I've seen dealing with like the Goetia or like other things, like you are, like what you just said, first off, you're probably going to call upon God before you even start the ritual. Then you're probably going to call upon him at some other point after the ritual starts. Then you're going to call in all these angels that you're basically like binding the demon with these angels. You know, so it is actually very interesting how, like, I don't think people realize, like, there is a lot of acknowledgement on these other things existing and being good for you to even do what you're doing. In some way, you know, I don't think people like thinking about that part. It doesn't make it sound like as evil sometimes. I mean, it gets weird, but still.
It just sounded to be I found it to be contradicting to what the purpose was of conjuring a demon.
Well, let me throw this out for you, Myke. I did a episode with Megan, 7 Degrees of Wisdom, on the greater and lesser keys. And I have some experience in both of those grimoires myself, just personally. And there is a way to think about it in a non-dual way. So you work through the 72 angels and those names. So you kind of master the names, and then you work through the 72 goetic spirits using the mastery of the angelic names to call upon the goetic intelligence. But if you think about it in a non-dual way, you can say that the goetic intelligence is just the shadow version of the Luciferic angel. So I don't know. I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. I wish I could talk more with you about this on a separate subject, but yeah, that's very interesting. I'd love to hear more of what you have to say about that.
Well,
I will say this, that Myke, that the fact that you said that, it like literally just clicked, because we've covered some of these grimoires, these ancient grimoires, on the show, and you were absolutely, I don't know why it never hit me, but now when you said it, it is based on either Judaism, Islam, or Christianity. Unless you keep going further back, where you start looking at Sufism, Zoroastrianism, you're now looking at some of the older languages that predate Aramaic.
The true paganisms, yeah.
Yeah, like you're talking about actual like cuneiform type era of some of these grimoires, and that's almost pre-Adamic at that point. You know, we haven't even gotten into the realm of the Abrahamic religions at that point. And so the fact that you said that, it literally, like, yeah, it falls into those 3 different categories, unless you step out into like some of the Asian or religions that were not influenced by the Abrahamic.
Right.
That's very interesting. You said that. That brings a lot of clarity to me, for sure.
Yeah, I just couldn't understand why they continually. It always remained like there was never any true satanic or opposite of Christianity or opposite of God that people were studying. It was always affiliated with their religion. So if they did try to conjure a demon or some sort of entity from hell, they were still doing it through a method that still used religion. So I just never really found that interesting.
You know, it's funny even just talking about like the Goetia and like demons and stuff. Just remembering from my own experience, like even when I was big into, I guess, being around that stuff. Most of the people I knew that even did like the Goetic stuff or the lesser keys or the greater keys and messed with Solomonic magic, they all like basically also acknowledged like Jesus and Moses in like certain ways, especially in the occult. And then it's like, because like they understood like that was kind of like where that stuff fell. And the silly thing is then like you'll get like, I mean, not to sound like, I guess, like an idiot, but like maybe kind of like, Wiccans want to be like a little a little daring, they'll fuck with the Goetia not knowing exactly what it's really about, and like have no care for Jesus or any of that. Even like they already deny like angels and all that shit. Like the way that they think, it's just funny. It just doesn't work. Like they're not actually in the mindset to be even practicing that correctly. So it's like then you get people, I think, like fucking with shit that they don't even understand and just making things worse maybe.
Oh yeah. See, and that's the thing. I studied the occult for 6 to 7 years. I read. That's how long I was reading for. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I actually started in around 2006 to about 2012, give or take. So I was reading like a madman. And I don't even know what brought it on. Actually, I think the first book I read was the Necronomicon by Simon. And even though everybody tells me, oh, that's poppycock, it's a bunch of fantasy. Okay, cool, whatever. I still found it interesting. And one of the books that I own is a very rare book. It's the hardcover. I know it goes for a lot of money now. So I'm just happy to have that because it started where I read that book and it sort of enticed me to want to understand more about magic. And so, like any curious man or woman who is interested in such a subject, you start buying more books. And that's what I started doing. And eventually, of course, maybe you might relate to this, but you start getting the books and then you start practicing the actual ceremonies, the rituals, the hexes, the curses. And I was blown away. So yeah, I just don't understand in these times that we live in how people can see the grimoires as being either one or the other, like either the left-hand path or the path of God. So I don't know. It's a very complicated thing for me to describe.
No, I understand that. Damn, there was something I wanted to ask you. You said magic. What is magic to you?
Ooh, well, it could be a number of things. There are people who say that Jesus, if he did exist, was a magician.
Yeah.
And magicians did exist, thousands of years ago.
I think ever since there's been man, I would think there's probably...
Sure. Once you figure out how to do something and make something disappear or whatever, that's magic. So now you've got stage magic, and then you have ritual magic. So ritual magic, as I began to explore that, again, and I say this only because I was curious, like any person who reads about these types of things, you're like, wow, does this work? And so you try it. Magic, for me, it's a frame of mind. If you want to alter the future through a ritual that you, for example, let's say you want to, I'll give you a perfect example. One of the first few things I did, I had a neighbor I couldn't stand, lived upstairs from me. Two of them, actually, two girls. And they were just so annoying. And so I did a ritual for 3 days. And that ritual was to get these girls to move. And one day, I was with my other neighbor, who I liked a lot. And we're coming down the stairs of our building. And one of the girls who I don't like, she comes down or up the stairs. We kind of bumped into each other. So now the girl that I like, who's standing next to me, she's talking to the girl who I don't like. And the girl who I don't like says, yeah, we're going to be moving out in about 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, it worked. So magic is a frame of mind where I sincerely believe it's a matter of practice, like anything else, weightlifting, running, whatever art, music, whatever you practice on a regular basis to become good at. I sincerely believe that if you practice with your mind how to alter things, that it can be possible. Then again, there's also that debate on whether or not it's chance or simply coincidence. Maybe. I don't know. All I know is that the few rituals that I did, some of them actually happened, and that's what blew me away.
It's a little freaky, right? You're like, oh.
Yeah, it was.
Damn, maybe this is
Talking
real.
about stage magic and ritual magic, do you believe that, like now, or like for how long ever, that ritual magic in the music industry is performed on stage?
That's a good question. And again, if I could remember the name of that goddamn book, it's like right there on my. It's right down on my.
I looked up some titles actually. Maybe it'll ring a bell. Let's see if I can still find
The
it.
name of the author. The name of the author. His name is Gavin Badley.
Gavin.
I don't see.
Gavin Badley. Badely or Badley. And his first name is Gavin. Gavin. God damn it. Let me look it up. Let me see if I can find it.
I don't seem to be finding a whole lot, but I'm very interested since like now, especially with Taylor Swift, like she has been, I mean, she's been moving up forever, but so many I know fucking Taylor
Lucifer
Swift.
Rising?
Lucifer Rising?
Yeah.
Lucifer Rising, yeah.
Go to her concerts and then afterwards like don't even remember being there.
I don't know. I know nothing about Taylor Swift. I really don't.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm proud.
Was it Lucifer Rising, Mike?
Yes,
Lucifer Rising?
Lucifer Rising by
Nick
Gavin
and Matt
Badley.
both, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that book explains a lot about the association of ritual magic or rituals in themselves within rock concerts. And he explains how we went from having the high priest conducting his gathering of people, the tribe, if you will, or the neighborhood. And he would, like any good speaker, you bring the people in and they listen to every word. So now you've replaced that with amplifiers and drums and speakers and a singer. And now you've got people that are throwing their fists up in the air and the horns. And yes, it has become sort of a ritual. And in some cases, not even bands that are associated with Satanism or witchcraft or the occult. I mean, it's just like you're creating this godlike image on stage, which I think is one of the reasons that a lot of people get into being into rock bands, is because of the notoriety and the what's the word I'm looking for? The popularity that you get as a good performer. I mean, provided you're good.
I think apotheosis is really the right term, like, you know, ascending into godhood almost.
That's a good way of putting it.
The level of fame and money, and like you can get everything, and you know, sometimes even everyone you want because you're that big rock star. Like nobody's gonna say no to you. So yeah, of course you're gonna feel like God on
Well,
earth.
and I think a lot of the bands now are AstroTurf. They're you no longer have to have so much talent, because the marketing industry will propel you into that level of it. And even like putting in sort of
rap
a filter
music.
That was good.
That's what it is. They don't have no fucking talent. I'm sorry. There's no fucking talent in that. I could stick a pen up my ass and write a rap song. Okay? It takes nothing to write a rap song. In fact, compare any lyrics. I'm sorry I cut you guys off. You were talking. I'm sorry, Lisa.
No, not at all. No.
You compare any type of lyrical content from a real song, from a real poet, and compare that to a rap song where words that rhyme are simply words that rhyme. So for the ultimate result of rhyming, that's it. They have no meaning. The English is the worst I've ever heard. So this is why I hate rap music.
English.
It is not music. It is not. I mean, they're not singers. They're not a band. It's a programmed song. Maybe it might have a bass guitar. Mostly it's drum beats with like sampled, stolen music from somebody else. And it's just the worst. It's a bastardized version of English. So, yeah. All right. I'm sorry. I got that out of my system.
No, you're absolutely right. Like you see that a lot in what they call SoundCloud rappers. Like all they have really is a gimmick, an image.
Yeah, and it's all the same too. It's all ghetto gangster bullshit.
But
yeah, or like with the overly bright colored hair and grill and whatever, and then indeed telling everyone that, oh, you're such a gangbanger until the gang actually comes after you and you're like, oh, I don't know shit.
It's terrible.
But yeah, like you get a label behind you, a couple $1 million in marketing, and like all of a sudden now you're just this big, mega rapper.
What a bunch of bullshit.
For some fucking reason.
The record industry in this country is bullshit. Bullshit. All right. They don't sign musicians for being artists. They sign musicians because they want a duplicate of whatever the most popular band is so that they can sell as many units as they possibly can. And by units, I mean CDs. Nowadays, that's even changed because CDs are on their way out as well.
Oh, yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah, now it's playlists. You got to get your the most popular song in the best playlists.
Right
now,
all the top 40 crap is just that crap.
Yeah,
it's all just remanufactured bullshit. Taylor Swift
album sounds exactly the same.
Precisely.
Like 7 albums, if you play them back to back, I couldn't tell the difference between one album or the next. Maybe like in the break between. Like from the last song to the first song of the new album, but other than that, like just so many bands who have been around for years, but like never change it up, like just always do the same thing because that's what sells.
If I may just go back to the original question, if you guys are interested, check out this book called Lucifer Rising by Gavin Badley. And I'll tell you, it really is a great book. And he covers it from when Satanism kind of began in the Dark Ages, and he works his way through up into the modern times in the 60s when Anton LaVey started modern Satanism, and then he moves on into rock and roll, art, television, so on and so forth. It's a fabulous book. In fact, Gavin, and I'm not just saying this that he's got a great book because of what I'm about to tell you, but he actually did another book called Goth Chic. And he did a nice little spread on me. That's how I was introduced to him. I didn't even know he wrote that book until like somebody gave it to me and I read it. And then I was like, who wrote this? And I looked and it was Gavin Badley. So this guy is really, I've actually tried to contact him. I can't get through, but then again, I'm terrible when it comes to the internet. This is a great book. I sincerely implore you to read this book. It's very, very accurate. It really is.
Awesome. I found some copies on Amazon, so it's freely available.
Yeah.
Okay. Something I wanted to ask you, Myke. Were you ever into meditation?
I've tried it. I'm sorry to say that I never really fully studied it well enough to understand it. I tried it a lot when I was, I used to try to get myself, I would meditate to get myself prepared when I was doing rituals. There's a book called the Hexagrandior, I think it's called. Another great book on rituals. The only problem is that when it was translated, a lot of the words got all screwed up. So, but I highly recommend it. It's called the Hexagrandior, I think it's called. Hexagrandior. And I would, in that book, it tells you to meditate, to prepare yourself for a ritual. Everything from taking a bath or shower and cleansing yourself to cleaning out the area where you're going to work so that it's clean, setting up your altar with all your psychodrama stuff, and then just being focused. So I did try that on a number of occasions, but sadly, I never really stuck with it. So to answer your question, I would say no. I've tried it. I've tried meditating, but I don't think I've done it well enough. I think I could do better.
Okay. Just wondering.
Why do you ask?
I was big into that when I did ritual magic. Did a lot of meditating prior and after.
Did you do it for the preparation of the ritual?
Yeah, to clear my mind. Maybe sometimes even focus on it. Like, are you sure? Like, is this really what we're gonna do too? You know.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Really
actually.
intent. Yeah.
I never got into the whole like sitting still thing.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
No, I hated it at first. I fucking hated it.
I mean, my meditation, as you know, I've said numerous times on my own show, is jujitsu and weightlifting. That's where I can just, you know, clear my mind and stay focused on one thing. That's how I can, you know, how I can be at ease.
I think meditation can be super dynamic and very. I know Nick still does meditation. I know he kind of past tense it, but I know the truth.
No, I still no.
But I think it is very magical. But I think you have to really be in control of your will and like know where you're going with it. And you know, like for Buddhism, like I follow a sadhana, like I follow a very specific God. It's like it's very Kabbalistic, right? Like I follow the path to the magical experience, where I think Nick's more experienced in that he can kind of direct himself to the place where he wants to go by himself, like through his own will. So I'm still working up to that personally, but I do recommend meditation, but it doesn't have to be quiet sitting. There's many types. So I'll throw that out there.
Jin, at least before you ask that question, Liza, Jin, I'd really like to talk more with you about some stuff. I really would.
All right.
If when the show's over, if we can connect somehow, I'd like to talk more with you about what you know.
Sure. I mean, if everyone's cool with it, yeah, I would love to have you on Myke on my show or whatever.
Well, even aside from your show, I'd like to talk to you on a personal level.
Okay, yeah, I'd love that. Well, no. You have to ask. You have to, strike all the
It's not like we're going on a date.
It's a budding bromance. That's
oh, hell yeah.
He's like, oh, that's so cute. Anyway.
All right, Lisa.
Sorry.
Lisa,
you were saying, Lisa. I'm sorry.
I have a very naive question, very elementary. So what does Satanism look like from the day to day? In my mind, I'm referencing it in my mind because I grew up Catholic. So is it something that you are instilled to think about all throughout the week, and then on Sunday you go to this grand mass, and then you do the whole thing all over again the week? Is it more of like every day? Do you have like a ritual that you do something to honor what you believe in, or is it like a bi-weekly thing, a weekly? I mean, and again, it's an elementary question because I don't know how to ask. What does that look like for you every day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year?
That's a great question. For me, I can only speak for me personally.
Okay.
When I read the Satanic Bible, it hinted to the fact that You don't have to do that sort of thing every day. And still, you can still be in the category of being a Satanist.
Mhm.
However, there are people who do follow it, doctrine. I don't think I was ever one of those people. I think, and I got to be honest, I haven't done anything in a while. I really haven't, like ritual or anything like that. When I was really, really into it in like 2010 throughout to about 2015, 16, all that time, on occasion, I would do like a ritual. It's not something that I did religiously or habitually like you would if you were a nun or a priest or something in the Roman Catholic Church. So for me, it was different. And as I said, I haven't been doing a lot of it. I've been dealing with my own things lately. I should say problems. But it depends. I think for other people, they can find it. They can find it in themselves to do it every day. And I think that's kind of good because, again, that helps you practice what you're trying to achieve in that category of belief. I hesitate to call it a religion because to me the term religion is something that you pray to, and I don't pray to anybody. I don't pray to anything. When you read the Satanic Bible, you have to read between the lines. It's not just black and white. There are people who sincerely believe that there is a red man with horns and a tail and a goatee like this, and that he's down there going, "I'll see you in hell. I'm gonna write your name down in the book." I don't know if it's like that. The same way I don't believe there's a guy sitting on a cloud, waiting at the pearly gates to let you in. I just don't believe that.
Mhm.
And when I say read between the lines of the Satanic Bible, I say that only because I've read other books about Anton LaVey, and I learned who he was as a character. And who he was, he explains or hints to the fact that there is no devil.
Right.
There is no God. There are no demons. There are no angels up here.
Mhm.
But Satanism uses, especially now, it uses those icons of demons and sigils and talismans and all the stuff that goes along with anything that's anti-religious. We use that as a form of, I'm not going to say protection, almost like a curtain, if you will, to hide behind, so to speak. And I say hide, when I say hide, I don't mean that we're cowering. I mean, just like I'm going to use Christianity as an example. You have the cross. You have the images of the Virgin Mary. You have the images of, I forget St. Christopher, who carried Jesus across the water on his back. All these symbols and the saints and holidays of saints and so forth, most of which was taken from pagan holidays. And that stuff is just utilized in the religion.
Mhm.
I don't use any of that stuff because for me, it's not a religion. It's a way of thinking. It's a method of living your life and how you live it and the standards you should have as a human being to be able to do other things with other people, relationships, working, friends, lovers, so on and so forth. It's just like any religion. It's just part of your life.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Can I ask a follow-up question to Lisa's question? Because I thought it was really good. Because that is not something I'm super familiar with either.
I'm
like,
not.
yes, I'm in the weird camp. Like I'm a tantric Buddhist, Mike. I'm in the weirdo camp. I used to be like a magician, I guess, in my own way, but now I've kind of cleaned up my act. So yeah, I think that's a great question. It really builds the foundation for us to like speak more on it. But I there's this kind of idea that maybe Catholicism is this exoteric religion that like teaches people morality in a like a superficial way, but then there's also like a Rosicrucian sort of like element where if you recognize the seeds, you can then sort of progress further with theurgy, or like with a Christian sort of oriented theurgy. What do you think of that, Myke?
Well, are you saying, as a Buddhist, are you saying, wait, I'm a little confused on your question.
Okay.
Are you saying that the belief of, I'm sorry, repeat the question so I don't screw it up.
No, that's okay. I think I asked it in like a messier way. I'll try and clarify a bit. So I think there's an idea of Catholicism, specifically Catholicism, not Christianity in general, but that Catholicism actually might be a magical religion in the secret density, like in sort of like if you understand the keys, you can progress further in it. But the exterior, sort of the superficiality of it, that is just to sort of keep people like well behaved, nice, okay, good morality. That's all good. I'm not against that personally, but there is like a much deeper sort of inner layer. That's just a theory, but I think it's sort of interesting.
Well, first and foremost, I've always said that the Bible is a book of stories that helps mankind to be better with one another. So in other words, when you read about, how to be kind to your neighbor, that's a good thing. But there are things in the Bible, as I mentioned before, like, when you get slapped in the face, turn your cheek so that you can get slapped again. See, anyway, that's not something that's old. That's New Testament. Old Testament is eye for an eye. Right. Satanism is eye for an eye. Right. And even more so, it's like, do not fuck with me because I will fuck with you back. That's Satanism. But I think the Bible is a perfect example of how to teach people how to be good to one another. And that's something we could definitely use in the world right now. At the same time, and I feel this way about all major religions, is that the mainstream major religions are, at this point in time, they're just a business, in my opinion. Maybe if you go back 1,700 years, maybe at that point in time, 1,500 years, maybe in that point in time, religion might have been a little bit more based and true to its word. Then again, I mean, you still hear stories. I mean, molestation, rape, all that stuff, that's been going on for millennia. Like, that's just how mankind is. We're not all we say we are cracked up to bait. We're not. If we were so good at what we're doing, we wouldn't be in the situation that we are in the Middle East, in Europe. None of these wars would be taking place. Everything would be peachy fucking keen, but that's not the case. The world is a fucked up place, and humanity is a fucked up creature. And I have no problem saying that because I see the news all the time, and I read about mankind is crazy, and is all with all this great stuff that we've got in the world. There's still the fact that we treat each other like shit. Theft, rape, murder, you name it. It's just, all I can say is that we are not the greatest thing on earth. We're really not. So I'm backtracking again, but the Bible is a book of stories that teaches, and it's one of the oldest books that teaches you how to be a decent person, and I see nothing wrong with that.
I think Jin is onto something with Catholicism. Like a really good friend of mine is a devout Catholic, but he is more so a believer in the warrior Christ, like the warrior spirit, the one who like on the spot breaks a whip to like fucking whip the merchants out of the temple. Says, like, kind of paraphrasing, but sell your cloak, buy a sword. And I don't know for sure if that's like the more of the pagan aspects that definitely is in Catholicism. I mean, some things they just bought wholesale and just changed the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, let me copy your homework. Okay, sure, but like change it up a little so it doesn't look like you copied it.
That's right.
But yeah, Catholicism in of itself, like as a religion, if you like take all the like the exoteric, all the fancy stuff, if you take it out, I think there is actual strong magic in it. Like I don't know who actually said it, but I can remember a quote by someone saying that the ladies in the back of the church, like praying with the rosary, are like more skilled and more powerful magicians than like any priest or any Satanist, quote unquote, like the mainstream pop culture Satanists, let's say, like the ladies in the back with the rosary, like the 60-year-old grandmothers just praying the rosary. They actually get more shit done.
Says who?
Than anyone.
Says who?
I don't remember who actually said that, but I do believe that like at least Catholicism, if you take the root of it, like the true divine aspects of it, that there is strong magic to be found in it.
That's an interesting concept. I mean, I was going to address the other part of the question to Jin about magic with Catholicism, right? I can honestly say I don't know much about that. I've never considered it, except for the theory of whether or not Jesus Christ himself was a magician, and or anybody else back then that might have been a saint who bled from their hands with stigmata, or I don't know, came back from the dead or something like that. That can all possibly be related to magic. So I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, is it? You think it's magical? Because I don't. I don't. I mean, if it's magic, then it might more. I would say if you believe it's magical related with Catholicism, I would say it's probably more stage magic than anything, because you didn't have magical stage shows back in the time, in the Dark Ages. That's only something that came on in the 1700s. So again, and if I may, not Sean, Stein, if I may, I don't necessarily believe that comment about the little old ladies in the back of the church, doing the rosary beads, whether they would be magicians or more powerful than the priests. You can relate it to like back in the time. Like I remember, for example, when I was a little boy, my grandmother, Italian grandmother, if I had a headache or I wasn't feeling good, she would do this thing, and I cannot remember the name of it, where she would take water in a bowl, and then she would take oil and drop oil in it, and then she would roll it over my head like that, and she would do this mantra prayer, and that's what I would hear. And what did it work? I don't know. I have no idea. But what I'm getting at is this: little old lady using magic to help a little boy with his head or sickness?
Psalm number 2. That's what Psalm 2. That's what you would use if you have a headache. You read
Is that what
the
it
Psalm.
is?
Yeah. Well, I
There
mean,
you go.
that maybe not for Catholics, because we're not, Catholics aren't supposed to really read the Psalms out loud, sort of a pre-Vatican II rule. But in general, in a Kabbalistic way, the Psalms have a very specific kind of gematria, name of God, all that built into them, so they each have like a secret meaning. And if you understand the secret meanings, you can then sort of deploy them in those instances. So for a headache, yeah, you use Psalm 2.
I think for me, like an outsider looking in, when you do look at the two different versions of the Bible, 1 and 2, the Old Testament, New Testament, when we looked at some of these grimoires, whether it came from different regions of different religions, when I hear you speak of your tenets, Myke, it reminds me of quantum mechanics. It reminds me of the law of attraction. It reminds me of the ability of our energy encapsulated in mass to be able to manipulate the electromagnetic field and somehow, in a way, do it nicely or do it for manipulative purposes. And you choose every day, do I feed the wolf that will bring me peace, or do I feed the wolf that will bring me war? You know, and it seems like we're all kind of going along the same, in different languages. Like we're all trying to do the same thing, but in different beliefs, in different languages, in different, methodologies from a scientific perspective.
That's
right?
a very interesting theory. I will admit that's very interesting. I never thought of that way.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to get into before it gets too late. It's kind of getting long enough. I don't want to keep you here too long, Mike. But one thing I did want to ask you maybe to break down for us, I guess maybe differences of like the Satanism that you're into and other ones that might be popular.
Well, when I was growing up, when I was a young punk rocker in my mid-teens, when I first started driving, I got to meet a lot of other people. I had 2 friends in particular who were my best friends at the time. 3 best friends, one of which I still speak to this day. They were all into metal. And at least 2 of them were into like the black metal and the speed metal, which I was never into because I was into punk rock. But I hung out with them. And they liked bands like Venom, Slayer, all the dark bands, and they were into the symbolism, especially with Venom.
They were blatant.
And
kind of.
What's that?
They were kind of blatant with the symbolism, I think.
Oh yeah, well they were also
that was their
big-time
vision.
so-called Satan worshipers.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but what I'm getting at is this: the music that they were listening to, I wasn't really into it. But I saw that there was a genre of younger kids, mostly like, I was fresh out of high school. So there were still the kids that were hanging out in the back, smoking weed and listening to Motley Crue and Venom and Metallica. And they were the ones who were like, Hail Satan, man. Fuck yeah. I was never like that. I was never that kid. There are kids and people for that matter, not kids, but adults as well, who take Satanism and use it in a way that I don't particularly find interesting. And that way is that it's just a cool thing to be into, and that cutting the head off a pigeon or killing a cat or burning a church, or even, what the other Nordic metal bands do, killing somebody that they don't like. I don't agree with any of that. That's not Satanism to me. Maybe I'm completely out of whack here. Maybe I'm the one that's not following Satanism as it should be followed, so to speak. But I found, as I said, when I read the Satanic Bible, I didn't read it to say, well, I want to be a Satanist, so I'm going to read this book. No, I read the book because I was studying the occult and underground, I should say, religions that weren't mainstream, occultism. So when I read the Satanic Bible, as I read the things that were in it, I instantly found a connection. Like, wow, I'm like, this sounds like me. That's how I discovered I was a Satanist. Not because I was listening to Motley Crue or Venom and throwing my hands up in the air saying, "Hail Satan." That wasn't it. And as a matter of fact, when you're learning witchcraft or Satanism, you're supposed to not only study your own books and everything, but you're supposed to have a master. I had a master from San Francisco, a guy who used to live in New York City, who I knew. He's a full-fledged Satanist. He helped me understand it. Like, I would talk to him every Sunday for I think we did it for 6 months. Him and I might have been longer than that. Every day when I was writing that book, he was helping me understand things a little bit better. And he even said to me, "Myke, I'm not one of those guys that you'll see at a rock concert throwing his hands up in the air like this." He said, "Satanism for me is a method. It's a way of living. It's who I am." And that's how I found myself to be, because I again, like I said, I wasn't at the concerts going like this. I already had a frame of mind. I just needed to know what direction it was going to go in. That's how it worked for me. So I think there's and I'm not trying to be rude to anybody that's, a double horns, fist throwing metal guy. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I'm not that type of person. For me, the understanding of modern Satanism was simply to be in tune with yourself, know what you are, and that is, you're just an animal like every other animal on this planet. We're just lucky enough to have a big brain and a thumb, and that's what helps us create the inventions that we all have, that everybody loves and uses to this day. Everything from a fucking toilet to the cell phone. So that's pretty much my answer. That's who I am. I'm not something that is just for show. Like, in other words, I don't do this just for show. Because if I did, I would have been doing it in my band Empire Hideous for all the years that we were, out and about. But I never did it with Empire Hideous. It was not a satanic band. I never did it with Spy Society. I never did it in Bronx Casket Company. And I certainly never did it in the Misfits. But as a person, personally, I am a Satanist, and I discovered that simply by reading the Satanic Bible.
Okay. It was very well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a really good show, Myke. I had a blast with you when I was on Daniel's Ballbusters show, and I had an even better time now. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,
Anytime.
Yeah, that was great. That was great information, man. Like I said, a lot of stuff, I just don't know anything about. Hopefully, the fans got something out of that too. I think they did. Myke, do you want to?
If I may, real quick, the one thing I want to say is that, and I think I kind of maybe explained it a little bit in the beginning, but I'm not some guy who does all this stuff just to stand out and have some sort of a unique character. I just it's something that I found fascinating, along with witchcraft pre 1960s and other types of occult related organizations, religions, whatever you want to call them. That's for me. It was a knowledge thing. I wanted to really understand it, and that's the difference. I think between. Well, let me rephrase it. I think if anybody is misunderstanding who I am or what I believe in. Don't be confused by what the mainstream religion would put out there to make you think that anybody who believes in Satanism is, this bad person and we're going to a fiery death hell. That's not it at all for me. Plus I love horror movies and just horror in general, and you can see behind me I got the Evil Dead poster, and I was just always into that stuff. So Satanism is probably not that much different from the things that I was always into. And that's pretty much what I want to say.
Thank you.
Now what did you want me to do? Plug?
Yeah, anything you want to plug, anything you want to promote?
I would be greatly thankful if I could do that. I have a little piece of paper right here. If you're interested, if anybody's interested out there, I got a website called MykeHideous.com. And that's spelled with a Y, MYKE, MykeHideous.com. I do stuff like this. Can you see that?
Oh, nice.
That's one of my designs. That's Lon Chaney Sr. from the movie London After Midnight. So I print T-shirts. Well, I don't print them here, but I make designs of old horror stuff and creepy things, as well as my own designs. And I have T-shirts made for people. Throw blankets. You should see this thing on the throw blanket. Oh, it's so cool. I have one myself. Throw pillows, and other various things. I also sell my music, Empire Hideous, Spy Society, and that stuff is all on MykeHideous.com. Here comes my cat. Get out of the way. And finally, you can get all that stuff on the website. What else? What else was I going to tell you? If you're lucky enough and you want to get the new CD single that comes with the poster, like I said, I think there's like 2 copies left. If you go to MykeHideous.com, right on the front page, you should be able to see a link for it. If not, go into the shop section, and you can order it in the area where the CDs are. Also, if you want to get my book, King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit, that is also still available on my website. If you'd like to contact me on social media, you can reach me at what is it? Oh yeah. Facebook.com/Hideous Myke. And lastly, I just recently started up an Instagram page, and that one's called Myke Hideous Official. Again, Myke is spelled with a Y. So yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
No, thank you. I had a great talk. It was a great chat.
Thanks, man. Anytime.
Oh, yeah. Jin, do you want to plug your show real quick again before we wrap this up?
Sure. And so thank you, Nick, Lisa, and Stein. And of course, thank you, Myke. It was great to meet you. You lived up to my expectation. Everybody bigged up you. So I think you just embody punk rock and like a rebel spirit. And I think that's reflected in your thinking and your religious tendency. So I'm cool with it. I think it's awesome. So people want to check me out, Wukong Reborn on Twitter, WUKONG Reborn. I have a link tree. It'll be in the show notes, I think. And my show, Threshold Saints, just dropped one with Daniel from End of Days Radio on EA Coetting. People can check that out. I'll be on Stein's show in a couple weeks doing something on MMA fighters and the Thai tattooing Sakyant. We'll be kind of decoding some of their tattoos and just talking about the occultism and MMA. So, yeah, everybody, thanks so much. It was really fun.
Hey, Jin, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure, go for it.
After the show's done, would you mind that I get your connection from Nick?
Not at all. Also, I follow you on Insta, Myke, just so you know.
On Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that. I just started to. I'm such an idiot when it comes to the internet, man. I'm so
don't
stupid.
Worry about it. It's all good.
Maybe
it's all good.
Is it the thing I'm seeing in the window here, with the @ symbol? Is that you?
That is not my @ for Instagram. I'm more of a Twitter personality. That's a much bigger account. So
I'll tell you what. Since you're probably better at it than I am, contact me through Instagram, and then from there we'll set up. Because I really want to talk to you more about a couple of things that you spoke about. I'm very interested.
Sure. No, that's
so
cool. Thank you, Myke.
just
Awesome.
contact me, okay?
Awesome. Definitely. Yeah.
And again, thank you to all of you, Lisa, Stein, Jin, Nick, all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, hell
Thank
yeah.
you.
It's a good talk. And Stein, plug yourself real quick, please.
Yeah, for sure. I am the host of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a whole bunch of other platforms. I didn't even know there were so many fucking podcasting platforms. But you best thing you can do is go to our website, www.greyhornpagans.com. Everything that we do with the podcast, everything that we do with the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans, you can find on there.
Thank you very much. And Lisa, real quick, if you want to plug anything.
Yeah, thank you. Myke, thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure.
Genuinely, I was very curious about your belief system, about your practices and everything like that. And this was such a wealth of information for me because I don't know, and you could easily go on the internet and read, and that doesn't do anybody justice, really, to be honest with you. But and then I think you're a great person to ask and field questions from as well. So thank you very much for
thank you sincerely.
Absolutely. And Twitter, I'm sorry, X, thanks Myke. X, Solis Lisa, and Instagram Lisa Solis.
Awesome.
And the website.
Yes.
Occult Research Institute.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, again, who joined in.
One more time, I'm sorry to butt in. I did forget to say that I am a co-host on the Michael Deacon program, which you can find on YouTube. It's called The Michael Deacon Program. And I also have, I was doing a podcast of my own. Right now it's on hiatus, but you can still get the first 10 episodes, which is called Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Yes, thank you everybody again for jumping on. It was a packed house, and thank you everybody who also jumped in on the chat. All the people in the live.
Thanks
That's
for
what's
listening.
up. Yeah, I really appreciate it. There was some good stuff in there. That's why I like to go live. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.